Shalom, shalom, brother Abaya. First, we give all praise and glory to the Heavenly Father, which is Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Yahweh being the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shah being the Son, who people unknowingly call him Jesus Christ. Lord willing, you enduring, you praying, you fasting, you reading, you giving alms, you doing everything you need to do to make your calling and election sure in these last days. I want to give peace and blessing to whomsoever is watching this. I also want to give peace and blessing to whomsoever is not watching this, yet they believe in the Most High God Yahweh, they believe in his son Yahweh Shah, and they're keeping the commandments in truth and sincerity, man. Right now, this is going to be a quick video through the Spirit. The Lord put on my spirit to go into King James. A lot of people say King James was white or King James is black. Why are you reading that book? That's KJV? Oh, that's a white man's book. Not having the correct understanding. Because let's get a precept real quick. Salakia. Let's get a precept. Let's go to Sirach. Let's go to Sirach chapter 11 and verse 7. And it reads, "Blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first and then rebuke." So we all have to get the understanding before you start saying things out your mouth that you don't even know about. You're over here so confident in something you don't know about. No, you have to search out the knowledge, man. You have to search these things out. Let me get this precept of the Spirit. In Sirach 39, it tells you about a man and what he does. Sirach 39 and verse 1, "But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, and be occupied in prophecies." So you have to seek out these things, man. Don't just take a saying that your great grandpa told you, or your uncle that's smoking that cigarette all day, that's shaking that cigarette packet on the porch, telling you, "Oh, you believe in the Bible? That's a white man's book. King James was a homosexual white man." And you just take that and run with it because you heard someone say it. No, you have to be diligent and seek these things out. That's how you know you're a king. A king, he will search out a matter, man. Not a nigga, not a prostitute, but a king and a princess will search out a matter. Now let's get back to it. Let's go to King James. Now there's an article. Right, there's an article. King James was black. Part 1. It's a real good article. We might not read the whole thing, but it goes into some history, man. Let's get it. Let's start with King. We're going to start right here. Right? It reads, "King James, the first of England, was originally called James the Sixth of Scotland." Right? He was the son of a black father and a colored mother, both of royal blood. Now, when you go, we're going to read into it, but the reason why the mother was colored, because they intermarried. The mother had a white, I forgot which one it is, a white mom or a black dad, or vice versa. I don't know. We want to see though. I'm gonna read it again. He was the son of a black father and a colored mother, both of royal blood. Now we know you are what your father is. Let's get the classic real quick. Let's go to Numbers 1:18. King James, the Sixth of Scotland, his dad was King James the Fifth. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 1 and verse 18. But his dad passed away, or died. Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18. "And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers." You see that? So you are what your father is. If your dad's a Chinese man wearing that chopsticks in his buns, guess what? You are a Chinese man wearing the same chopsticks that you eat your ramen noodles with in your bun. If your dad's a so-called black man, guess what? You're a so-called black man, an Israelite, man. If your dad's a so-called white man, you're a white man. I don't care if you have skin pigment, you might have a little tan. No matter what, you are what your father is. It doesn't go by color. Because East Indians, man, they're dark too. But they don't call themselves black. They call themselves Indian people. Africans, they don't call themselves black people. They call themselves Africans from the tribe, man. So skin color doesn't determine what your nationality is. You are what your father is. So that's why we call ourselves Israelites, because we come from Israel. Romans 11 verse 1. You know what I'm saying? So let's go back to the article. Right? Now we read right here. Salakia. It reads right here. My bad. It reads, "He was the son of a black father and a colored mother, both of royal blood." Without the necessary background, this may sound like a far-fetched story motivated by a crazy desire to identify black heroes from world history. We should not forget, however, that after the Moors, now Moors just means black. So after the Moors settled in Spain In southern Europe in 711 CE, significant numbers of black people found their way into North European countries such as Scotland, Ireland, France, and Denmark. So yes, if you did not know, you had black people in Europe, man. Don't let these devils tell you that you've been in Africa. You was only in Africa. That's where you came from. You've been there your whole life, and it is what it is. Then in 1619, you got brought over here. No, man, you was all up in Europe. You have Spain, Portugal. That's why it's called the Iberian Peninsula. That word Iberia comes from the word Ibar. Or, in the Bible, it says Eber, which means, Hebrew. Or that's where you get your term Hebrew from. So all those places were made, where we lived over there, man. We was from over there. But the so-called white man won't tell you your real history. Let's go to the Bible real quick. Let's go to Revelation chapter 20. Because there was a time called the Middle Ages, aka the Dark Ages. During the Dark Ages, hence where it gets the name dark, black people were ruling in that time. You did not just have kings in First and Second Kings, man. King Solomon wasn't the only king. And Hezekiah, Josiah. We can't forget about those wasn't your only kings. You had kings not that long ago, man. Black kings with nobility, with honor, integrity, man. All right? This is the book of Revelation, chapter 20. I'm going to start at verse 1. And it reads, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years." Now, these are a literal 1,000 years. Who's the devil? Who's Satan? Devil just means deceiver. Satan just means adversary. Who's deceiving the whole earth? The so-called white man. That's Revelation 12 and verse 9. Satan is an adversary, man. Even tells you in Job chapter 9 and verse 24, he's called the wicked. He's the one who rules the whole earth. So when it says, "And he laid hold on that dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years," meaning he took away his rulership. Because remember, there was ruling in the time of what? The Greece. There was ruling in the time of Rome, man. To the Western Roman Empire collapse. Verse 3. "And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season." So these are literal 1,000 years. If I'm not mistaken, they say the Renaissance, not the Renaissance. They say that the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages started somewhere around 400, 500 BC. That's what they say, right? 'Cause it makes sense too, because the Western Roman Empire collapsed around 476. So that makes sense. So around the 500 AD, Salakia. Around 500 AD, Salakia. Right? So after they collapsed, the so-called white man, he lost his power seat. Now, who was ruling during that time? Israelites, man. But they wasn't calling themselves Israelites, most of them. They called themselves Moors. But that's just another term for black. So you had so-called black people ruling during the Middle Ages. Even, let me try to see if I can find this precept. Even Solomon knew about let's go to Wisdom of Solomon. Let me look at my Apocrypha real quick. Even Solomon, he knew about the Middle Ages. He knew about these different things. I believe it's Wisdom of Solomon 10. Wisdom of Solomon 7. Okay, come on. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7. And verse 17. And it reads, "For he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely, to know how the world was made, in the operation of elements, the beginning." So Solomon knew about the beginning. Ending, he knew about the end of times, man. He knew about doomsday, the second coming. He knew about these things. But right, that's the point though. In midst of the times. So even Solomon, he knew about the Middle Ages, man. I think he even told you in Second Esdras, the I forgot what terminology it used. The middle time approaching. There we go. Second Esdras 12 and verse 21. "And two of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. Four shall be kept until their end began to approach, but two shall be kept until the end." You see that? So Middle Ages are in the Bible, man. And again, the people who was ruling during the Middle Ages were who? So-called black people. The so-called Moor people, man. Moorish people. Now, let's go back. Now, it reads, I'm going to start right here. "Significant numbers of black people found their way into northern European countries, such as Scotland, Ireland, France, and Denmark. Now, when you look these places up right now, or you go over there, it's a lot of white people. But during this time, most white people was living in caves, man. They was living in caves because remember, their power seat was taken out. They wasn't ruling. They was living in caves. They was living in what's that one mountain called, man? Dang, I forgot that mountain. Word will it comes to me. But yeah, they was living in caves, man. They even have monuments of caves that look like a house, and stuff like that. That's where you get cave beasts from, you know. But I'm gonna keep going though, and this is real history. Just because you see a so-called white man with that tight behind suit, right, with the red bow tie or a red tie or I don't know, or all these different things and some alligator shoes, some lone socks, right? Hey man, that doesn't mean anything. Not that long ago, he was living in caves, man. He was a caveman, and they put it right in front of your face. What you think the Flintstones, whatever it's called? What you think that's about? They was living like caves, man, like cave beasts, and that's real. That's real history. Even Job tells you that, man. Right? But I'm gonna keep going though. It reads the nations of Scotland and Ireland were, since the beginning of the first millennium, had significant numbers of blacks who in Scotland wielded political power as the kings and rulers. So you have so-called black people ruling. That's playing upon tables. I want to jump down. You can read this on your own. You know what I'm saying? It's a good article. It really is. Now, I want to read this real quick. Right? It reads, they also wielded significant military power to neutralize black influence in Scotland. The neighboring white nations adopted the strategy of whitewashing the line of the black kings of Scotland. And that's where you get whitewashing from, man. Even before then. They whitewashed the Bible. They whitewashed history. There's certain people in history that say it's so-called white people, but they're really black people, man. Right? Like, for example, King James. King James was a so-called black man. But they whitewashed everything and try to make it seem like he's a white person when that's not the case. Let's go to the classic. Let's go to first Maccabees, 3 and 48. This is the book of first Maccabees, chapter 3 and verse 48. And it reads, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen has sought to paint the likeness of their images. So these heathen, they laid open our book of the law, man, the Bible. They say that King David was a so-called white man. They say that Moses was a so-called white man. They have pictures of Abraham by the offer of Isaac, and guess what? They're both so-called white people. They even took it upon their shoulders, they're wicked, man. They say that Jesus Christ is a so-called white man. Now, when you go into the Bible, it tells you that Christ was a so-called black man. That's Revelation 1, chapter 1, verse 14 and verse 15. When you go to Song of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 5, on the fold, it tells you that Solomon was a so-called black man, man. Job chapter 30 and verse 30, Job was a so-called black man. The Jews in Jeremiah 14 and verse 2 on one fold are so-called black people, man. Even tell you in Exodus, I forget what chapter, I believe chapter 4, that Moses was a so-called black man. So the people in the Bible are so-called black people, man, men of color. So why would they say that Jesus Christ is white? Because they whitewashed the Bible. They don't want you to know your history. Same thing they did with our history, man. With King James. Because you may be on the highways and byways. Prove to me that King James is not white. Wasn't he a homosexual? No, he wasn't homosexual. He wasn't white. He's a so-called black man. He's an Israelite. All right. Now, let's keep going, though. All right. It reads, I can't really do this. There we go. It reads, they enter into treaties with the Scottish kings that will ensure intermarriages between white princesses of the northern countries and the black kings of Scotland and their heirs. So they will intermingle with heathen, man. That's their strategy. That's what Jake do now. Look at Moab. Moab was not that light-skinned. Those are still Moabites, but the so-called white man put his seed in these Chinese people to make them lighter, man. Look at all these different nations. They're more light in appearance because the so-called white man don't want people to know that there was darker back then. There was people of color. But then he went into all these different nations and put his seed in them to make them more of a lighter skin complexion. And that's what he's trying to do right here with King James and the royal seed line. He wanted the so-called black kings to go into white princesses. Now, over time, the heir would be a white man, look like a white man, but really an Israelite. That's what they want to do, right? It reads, let's keep going. These were arranged marriages that would be overlooked by the Catholic Church. King James IV of Scotland was made to marry Margaret, the daughter of King Henry VII of England. And you can look that up. You know, King Henry was a white man. All right. I'm going to read it again. King James IV of Scotland was made to marry Margaret, the daughter of King Henry VII of England. Now, of course, Margaret would be a so-called white woman. King James is a so-called black man. But let's keep going, though. England was then still honoring the Roman Catholic Church, and it was King Henry VIII of England who would later break away from the Catholic Church to form the Anglican Church. It was from James IV arranged marriage with Margaret, with the Scottish kings began having a legitimate shot at kingship in England. I want to keep going to this right here. James V was born to Margaret. So James V had a Israelite dad, but a white mother. So he would have probably came out kind of mixed looking. But he would still been an Israelite, because in Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18, you are what your father is. Right? It reads, James V was born to Margaret and would also be made to marry two white French women. So after James grew up, he was made to marry white women. Again, this is crafty counsel. They want to tarnish black people and make them light-skinned people, man. But it reads, James V was born to Margaret and would also be made to marry two white French women, and his second wife was Mary, the daughter of the Duke of Guise. This Mary gave birth to a daughter she named Mary and would inherit the Scottish kingdom after the death of her father, James V. So this Mary is also called Mary of Scots, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that, something to that effect. She would be an Israelite. So you had a princess ruling a kingdom that was an Israelite, man. They do not tell you this. Not the first Mary, but the second Mary right here. Right, Slocking, man. This phone, right? This Mary right here, she was an Israelite. That's deep in itself, because that's like Esther right there, man. Right? That's like Esther, Judith, right? That's fire right there, man. But a lot of people think the people who was ruling over there are all white people. No, it was Israelites ruling over there, man. All right? Yeah, I told you right here, she was known as Mary, the Queen of Scotland. You see that? And that's plain upon tables. Now, I want to jump down. Again, this is not going to be a quick video. You can read this article, by yourself. Just type in King James was a black man. It should be like the first article, if I'm not mistaken. Right? But let me see. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to read this real quick. Hey. It says, Queen Mary's son was born a few months before his father's murder, and he was named James VI. Now, this is where you get King James. James VI of Scotland is also known as James I of England. Right? It says, James VI was therefore the son of a black man and a colored woman. The black man's gene is dominant to the white man's gene because the latter is recessive. When the two races meet through the miscegenation, hey, you gotta deal with it, man. Right? It's the white side which is forced to die, recess, after the offspring loses some black characteristics, such as kinkiness of hair and darkness of skin, but only to a small extent. You kind of see that with people now. You may see a man, his dad might be a black man, his mom might be a white man. He might have loose curls. He's still an Israelite, just different texture hair. This means James VI, being a son of a black man and a colored woman, probably looked no different from any black man we see today, which is true, right? I think that's the point, though. Yeah, you can really read this on your own. I just want to make this a quick video. I'll start real quick right here. It says, very quickly, he became an ally of England and an enemy of the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church hated King James. Once England and Scotland were cooperating with each other, France could not do much against the Scots on behalf of the Catholics. This angered authorities of the Roman Catholic Church because the church had lost its dominion over the northern territories of Europe. Meanwhile, King James was becoming great in his own country. And you always see that in the Bible. You always see David wax mighty. Or Isaac, the Lord gave him an increase and stuff like that, man. You always see our forefathers waxing great in the scriptures. Like Mordecai was waxing great, and he was waxing great, man. Same thing with King James. It says King James was becoming great in his own country. This is an Israelite man. The Lord had favor upon him, man. He was known for good governance and having a general sense of kingship, which lacked in many European nations at this time. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this one of our righteous forefathers back on the earth. I wouldn't be surprised. It reads, he treasured nobility, but conducted his duties with dignity and humility. His government was orderly, popular, man. The kingdom of England was at this time lacking male heirs, yet there was a descendant of the king, Henry VII, through Margaret, thriving in Scotland. Before long, it became obvious that England was going to be under King James, plain. You can't be Israelites, plain upon tables. In 1603, King James VI of Scotland was crowned King James I of England. Scotland, England, and Ireland were now all under his rule. And that's fire, man. Let me get one more precept before I close out. We have to go back into our, look at our forefathers, man. That's fire. And that was not that long ago. That was 1603. It's only 2022 right now, man. Romans 15 and verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. And that's mighty right there, man. So King James was a so-called black man. And you really think about it, if he was set up like that during times of heathens in this nasty world, how much more us in the kingdom of heaven, man? So again, Lord, when that was edifying, I'm going to give a koholoyim Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Peace and blessings to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. Psalms 115 and verse 1. Shalom.